What if you discovered something worth more than your life? Not a theory, a trail of real people who hit send and were never the same again. A bank emptied overnight, a journalist silenced, a platform turned weapon, a warning ignored until cities began to fall. Today, you'll enter the machinery of a system that turns truth into threat and those who speak into ghosts. 4 stories, 4 truths the world tried to bury. But if you listen closely, you can still hear the whisper. They weren't hiding it in shadows. They were moving billions in daylight, under the eyes of regulators, governments, and global markets. The year was 2012. The bank was HSBC, the 5th largest in the world. And behind its polished glass towers, something unthinkable was happening. Money from drug cartels, blood cash from Mexico, Russia, Iran, terrorist financing, sanctioned nations, narco empires, all flowing through the same vaults that managed pensions and mortgages. In a single year, HSBC helped cartels move over $881 million through the U.S. financial system, disguised in ways so simple it bordered on arrogance. In Mexico, branches literally built teller windows wide enough to fit duffel bags full of cash. Some deposits were so large, employees had to install custom cash counters designed to handle drug-soaked bills. Security footage captured armored SUVs arriving with no questions asked. Internal records showed repeat patterns daily, routed through shell accounts and flagged subsidiaries. They weren't trying to be subtle. They were too big to need subtlety. Behind the scenes, compliance officers raised red flags, thousands of them. Reports to management, reports to London, reports to US regulators, and nothing changed. If stories like this matter to you, take a second to like this video. It helps more people see what was meant to stay buried. Until a name surfaced, Everett Stern. He wasn't a whistleblower by nature. He was a believer in the system, a new hire, eager, methodical. But within weeks, he noticed something impossible to ignore. The system was deleting its own warnings. Transactions marked as high risk were being cleared without justification. Entire clients with links to terrorist funding were marked as low concern. In some cases, filters were turned off altogether, allowing suspect transfers to flow freely for hours, then quietly disappear from the logs. Stern documented everything. He went up the chain. He filed internal reports, then external reports. And slowly, the walls around him began to close. Calls unanswered, access restricted, meetings canceled. When he persisted, the threats began. Not overtly, but in tone. He was jeopardizing relationships. He was misunderstanding the scale. He was putting the institution at risk. But risk to whom? When the Department of Justice finally took action, the punishment felt surreal. $1.9 billion. Just over a month of HSBC's profits. No criminal trials, no prison time. The executives received bonuses. A Senate report confined the details. Internal emails showed a pattern of deliberate negligence. Some executives even joked about the messy business of foreign accounts while watching the stock price rise. Senator Elizabeth Warren called it a get-out-of-jail-free card. Attorney General Holder later admitted some institutions have become so large that prosecuting them could destabilize the entire economy. Too big to fail, too big to jail. And Everett Stern? He became a ghost in his own country, blacklisted by banks, followed, marginalized. He founded his own intelligence firm using what he learned. But in every interview, one phrase keeps surfacing. I followed the law, and I was treated like I broke it. Now, pause for a second. A global bank launders cartel money. The U.S. government knows. The evidence is public, and yet nothing changes. Why? Why would a system designed to detect risk choose to ignore it? And more importantly, what kind of system has more fear of truth than of terror? Because the next story isn't about money at all. It's about a leak so massive it made truth itself a target. The last story showed how a system can ignore the truth. This one shows what happens when it can't. In 2016, a leak exploded across the world like a controlled detonation. 11.5 million documents, over 2.6 terabytes of data, were taken from a single source, Mossack Fonseca, a Panamanian law firm specializing in offshore secrecy. The contents? A map of the hidden financial arteries of the elite. Heads of state, CEOs, criminals, athletes, celebrities, all quietly storing money in shell companies, trusts, and tax havens, all following the same playbook: hide, obscure, protect. The leak became known as the Panama Papers, and unlike most financial scandals, this wasn't a rumor. It was a blueprint. Names, dates, account numbers, a forensic X-ray of how the powerful protect their wealth while the public pays the bill. And here's what shocked even the experts. It wasn't illegal. Not exactly. Most of what was revealed wasn't about breaking the law, it was about designing around it. Entire corporate structures created for the sole purpose of never appearing in public view. Perfectly legal, perfectly untouchable. Until someone touched it. The documents were leaked anonymously to a German newspaper, Süddeutsche Zeitung, which partnered with the International Consortium of Investigative Journalists, over 300 reporters in 80 countries working in silence across borders in encrypted channels. This wasn't just journalism. It was war. Because as the reporting began, so did the retaliation. In Malta, a journalist named Daphne Caruana Galizia was one of the first to follow the trail linking high-level Maltese politicians to offshore accounts exposed in the papers. She was relentless, and then she was silenced. In October 2017, a car bomb tore through her vehicle outside her home. She was 53. She left behind 3 children and a laptop no one could unlock. Her last blog post, published just hours before her death, ended with a single sentence: "There are crooks everywhere you look now. The situation is desperate." She wasn't the only one. In Russia, journalist Sergei Magnitsky, who investigated tax fraud linked to offshore networks, died in a prison cell under mysterious circumstances. In Panama, police raided the offices of Mossack Fonseca, but no one went to jail. In some countries, the reporters were investigated, not the billionaires. That's the power of structure. You don't need to silence the truth, just the people who carry it. And yet, the papers forced a global reckoning. Prime ministers resigned, investigations opened, protests ignited in Iceland, Pakistan, Argentina. But something strange happened next. Silence. No mass arrests, no financial collapse, no systemic overhaul. Instead, the firm at the center of it all, Mossack Fonseca, quietly dissolved, and the world moved on, as if the largest leak in financial history was just another headline. But the message remained, encrypted in memory. If you expose too much too fast, The system doesn't just reject you, it erases you. And the more you dig into the money, the more you start finding something else beneath it. Power. And the next person who pulled that thread wasn't a journalist. She was an engineer working at Facebook. And what she uncovered wasn't offshore. It was inside you. The Panama Papers revealed how money moves in silence. This story reveals how silence is manufactured in you. Her name was Frances Haugen, a former product manager at Facebook. Not a hacker, not an activist, an insider. And what she exposed wasn't a number, it wasn't a transfer. It was something far more volatile, the business model of attention. In 2021, Haugen leaked thousands of internal documents showing what Facebook had known and ignored for years. That its algorithms amplified outrage and misinformation. That teens were suffering mental health damage from Instagram. That content that made users angry kept them scrolling. And that Facebook's own research had proven all of it. But here's the part most people missed. The system wasn't broken. It was working exactly as designed. Because outrage is profitable. Division is engaging. Fear holds your gaze longer than joy. Internally, the company had modeled the trade-off. If they adjusted the algorithm to reduce hate speech and conflict, user engagement dropped. Profits declined. So they didn't adjust it. In hearings, Haugen stated plainly, Facebook chooses profit over safety, over democracy, over the well-being of children. And then she added, no one outside the company knows what's happening inside Facebook. They know. Let that sink in. The largest social platform in the world, with over 3 billion users, had built a system that feeds you what keeps you hooked, regardless of harm. And the most chilling detail? This wasn't a glitch in the algorithm, it was the algorithm. Behind every like, every share, every suggestion, there was a neural network learning how to manipulate human attention millisecond by millisecond. And the system was blind to truth. It optimized only for engagement. The documents, known as the Facebook files, revealed internal slide decks, employee warnings, and abandoned fixes. It showed that staff flagged specific harm in countries like Myanmar and Ethiopia, where hate speech on Facebook was linked to real-world violence. And still, nothing changed, because changing meant slowing the machine. So Frances Haugen became the whistleblower. She testified before Congress, she revealed herself on national television, and she vanished from the tech world. But here's the twist. The world didn't turn against Facebook. Its stock dipped, then recovered. The platform kept growing, and public outrage faded just as the algorithm predicted it would. You can leak code, you can leak documents, but how do you leak a system that lives inside your behavior? What Haugen revealed wasn't just about Facebook. It was about the invisible architecture of modern life, one that rewards emotional manipulation, punishes nuance, and transforms your fears into fuel. Because when truth becomes just another variable in a data model, what happens to those who still try to speak it? The next story doesn't come from a vault. It doesn't come from a leak. It comes from a warning, ignored. And when it was finally heard, entire cities were already beginning to collapse. Frances Haugen showed how an algorithm could shape perception. This story shows what happens when you see too clearly, too early. Her name was Meredith Whitney. Wall Street knew her. She was the analyst who had predicted the fall of Citigroup in 2007 And she was right. So when she spoke, markets listened. But in December 2010, she said something no one wanted to hear. She went on national television and warned that hundreds of U.S. cities were on the brink of default. Not maybe, not someday, soon. She pointed to the same pattern she had seen before the subprime collapse. Over-leveraged municipalities, opaque bond structures, politicians overpromising and overspending, and the market treating city debt, muni bonds, like it was risk-free. Her warning: you could see 50 to 100 sizable defaults totaling hundreds of billions of dollars. The reaction? Panic. Markets rattled. The media attacked, and Wall Street turned on her like she'd betrayed the script. The truth was, Whitney didn't predict a date, she exposed a vulnerability. But in a system built on confidence, even a crack is treated like treason. Almost overnight, she became radioactive. Banks stopped taking her calls. She lost contracts. Her research firms suffered. And the financial press, once eager for her insights, started painting her as a cautionary tale, the analyst who cried wolf. But the defaults did come. Not in one wave, but in quiet implosions. Detroit, Stockton, Jefferson County, Harrisburg, Puerto Rico. Billions in losses, essential services cut, pensions slashed, lives altered permanently. And still, she was rarely mentioned, because the system doesn't just resist disruption. It punishes the messenger, then rewrites the story. Here's what makes this case different. Whitney never leaked a document. She never broke an NDA. She simply told the truth too early and paid for it in silence. A whistleblower without a microphone, buried by time, not force. And that raises a deeper question. If the system punishes those who expose fraud and also punishes those who predict it, what is it actually protecting? Because each of these stories, from Everett Stern to Frances Haugen, reveals the same pattern. Those who see too much are erased. But there's one more thing. None of them acted out of ambition. They didn't want revenge or chaos. They just couldn't live with what they knew. And that might be the most dangerous force of today. Not greed, not power, but someone who sees the truth and refuses to look away. Truth doesn't always explode. Sometimes it leaks. Through an email, a blog post, a courtroom whisper, a spreadsheet no one was supposed to open. And every time it does, the system sends a message back. We saw what you did. Now disappear. But the thing about whispers, they travel. From Everett Stern's deleted reports to Daphne's final sentence, from Frances Haugen's data trails to Meredith Whitney's silence. Each one left something behind. Not a headline, not a lawsuit, a question. If they were right, what else is being buried? And if you're still watching, maybe the next secret doesn't stay secret. Leave a like if their voices reached you. Subscribe because this isn't the end of the file. It's just what got out. Whistle. Some truths don't fade. They echo.